Morning, Rotis. How are you?
Good morning, Zibby. Good to be with you. I'm fine. Hope you're good. Good morning to all our listeners and viewers as well.
All right. Don't forget, this conversation is interactive and would love to hear your thoughts. You can send them to us via WhatsApp. The number is 0809 4440981, or just tweet at smooth981. Right. So we're talking about the economic woes of Ghana and Nigeria, which are similar.
Yep. Yes, they are, which is interesting enough, which, leads to some people to say, Africa is a country.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. So let's start off. I want to know, what type of crisis is Ghana facing currently?
Yeah, Ghana is facing a debt crisis right now. Their debt, I think, is in excess of 75% of their GDP. I think it was 68% in 2021 and then jumped to 75 or so. So it's incredibly high. Ghana is not able to pay her bills. She has had to suspend debt payments on Euro bonds and suspend debt payments on her local debts as well. And Ghana is seeking assistance from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, looking to get about $3 billion to assist the country in trying to address its fiscal position. Now, Nigeria also has a debt issue, but Nigeria has not suspended any payments on Eurobonds. Nigeria is still servicing her debt. Nigeria is still servicing international debt and local debt, but that does not mean that Nigeria is not facing, higher debt costs. So Nigeria is not in a debt crisis, but just as a way of comparison, just to so people know, Ghana is in a full-fledged debt. Ghana said they wouldn't go to the IMF for any help, but they had to turn around and do that because things got really, really bad.
Wow. So how did Ghana get into this situation that it's currently found itself in?
So there's a bit of a similarity with Nigeria. They discovered oil, I think it was back in 2010, and then they started exporting or so in 2011 or 2012, and the economy rapidly grew. And they've now started spending way too much. They front-loaded their spending, thinking that the oil windfall that they would earn would cover the spending for them. So they suspended school fees on senior secondary school students. They also went about trying to refinance debt for, I think, power companies, and also trying to refinance debt for banks and financial services companies. So what that means is they spent a lot of money restructuring loans in the country for the power sector and also for the banking sector, and they spent way too much money. And then unfortunately, the oil windfall that they were expecting didn't come in as they thought. And so their debt ballooned, COVID happened, war in Ukraine happened, and it now put a lot of pressure on their finances. It's kind of similar to, Nigeria, where Nigeria was very dependent on mining and other sectors. Nigeria then discovered agriculture. Nigeria then discovered oil way back when, and then just abandoned everything else. And now you've seen Nigeria depend way too much on oil, but now oil theft and other things have impacted Nigeria's ability to produce oil. And so she can't sell as much as she did. So in a way, Ghana's situation is more severe, but similar trajectory in which both countries depended way too much on oil, and now they're in a bit of a pickle, so to speak.
We've got a message coming through from Olubenga. He says, the same Ghana that was the poster boy for the IMF and World Bank, how did it all go awry? So the curse of black gold strikes again.
Indeed. And Ghana indeed was the poster boy for Africa.
Wow. Now, the IMF has asked Ghana to stop borrowing from its central bank. Do you see any similarities with Nigeria?
That one is an exact similarity. They just, I think Bloomberg reported this, according to people familiar with the matter. The IMF said that as part of its condition to loan Ghana that $3 billion, they said Ghana should stop getting money from its central bank. And that is very similar to Nigeria. Nigeria, as you know, through what's called ways and means financing, Nigeria has been borrowing heavily from its central bank. But again, Nigeria is not asking IMF for any money, so IMF can't tell Nigeria what to do. But they can tell Ghana what to do because it's about to loan Ghana some money. So, it's very interesting. Ghana has also been relying on its central bank in order to try to plug its gap in its finances. So that there, Nigeria and Ghana, very, very, very similar there.
So what is it about Ghana that made it the darling of investors from all over the world prior to this time that it's facing this crisis?
Ghana was one of the most, and still is, one of the most stable from a political standpoint and security standpoint, one of the most stable nations in sub-Saharan Africa. There was a clean, with recent successive governments, clean transition of power. There has been stability, political stability, an independent judiciary, an independent central bank, and they've got, no security issues. This has been relatively secure. And so, because a country that investors felt was paying its bills and was doing well. And there's only this recent spending issue that just turned everything upside down.
Message coming through. This one says, ways and means, is that not the keyword in Nigeria? Let us know what your thoughts are. The WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981. And of course, you can also tweet at Smooth981. It's Business Express with Zibby and Rotas. And we're talking about the similar economic woes of Ghana and Nigeria. How much is Ghana seeking from the IMF? And do you think that figure is enough?
So like $3 billion, is it enough? Not really, because the refinancing, I think, that they tried to do for the power sector, was it for banking, was almost, I think, about it was the power sector, it's 2.8. So they need a whole lot more money in terms of trying to restructure their finances. And so it's not enough, but at least it will tide them over for now, and at least send a signal to investors that, well, they've got a bit of funds, although still they've suspended debt payments. So that's the issue that they're facing right now, in that those payments have been suspended. But $3 billion is still, at least for them, will go a long way trying to assist their system, but it's not enough.
So what is the way forward, not just for Ghana, but also for Nigeria as well?
Well, the way forward is to, first of all, stop with the borrowing from the central bank. Now, I should put this into, add some figures to this. Ghana has only borrowed about, I think, $3.2 billion from its own central bank so far. Nigeria has borrowed way more. I think if you convert 22 or 23 trillion, it's about 3, 4, maybe 5 times as much as Ghana has borrowed in dollar terms from its central bank. Now, of course, Nigeria is a massively larger economy than Ghana. You can fit Ghana inside Lagos, while you've got the vast swaths of Nigeria that are much larger. So Nigeria has borrowed way more. So that borrowing has to end. You've got to find a way to pay your debts. That is the first thing forward. Both Nigeria and Ghana need revenue. They need to be able to make more money. If you think about any individual who is facing a debt crisis, somebody who has borrowed a lot of money and they're trying to pay it back, the only way you can get out of that is to raise more money. And so the way for Nigeria to raise more money is that Nigeria has to sell a number of assets that are dead, has to unlock a lot of capital in our real estate sector. Nigeria has to also cut down on her expenses. It's the same thing with Ghana. Ghana announced that they will be reducing the amount of government officials' flights overseas. They said they would raise taxes. They said they would, look at a whole number of issues. So raising revenue is the number one thing. Now, the only issue is that, the war in Ukraine gave Nigeria a chance to raise money in that oil prices spiked. But unfortunately, because of oil thefts and because of the fact that you had oil production falling below OPEC quotas. Nigeria was not able to take advantage of higher oil prices. We talked, I think, on the show about Qatar and how Qatar was able to fund the World Cup, all basically from oil money. Saudi Arabia is building a new city, which is supposed to be some technologically advanced city, and it's all coming from oil money. So oil economies that are able to diversify away from oil, they use oil money to do that. So that's the pickle that Nigeria is in that she has to raise money quickly. And unfortunately, she has to depend on oil, which is the way out. But unfortunately, until her production increases, that's not going to happen. For Ghana, same thing. Ghana has to raise revenue. Ghana is the second largest cocoa producer in the world after the Ivory Coast. They also have to find a way to increase their outputs in order to raise their revenues, and they've got to pay down their debt. So you pay down debt, you raise revenues, watch your spending. You have to watch your spending. You've got to spend less on, like, Nigeria's personnel costs, I think, for this year is 4 or 5 trillion naira. I mean, that's a lot. It's matching capital expenditure. So those are the ways that they can so raise revenue, pay down your debt, reduce your spending, and try and run a fiscally, conservative government. That's how you do it. Now, it's easy to sit down on radio and provide all these solutions. The actual action of getting it done in this current economic climate is going to be tough, but that's what they have to do.
Clement via WhatsApp says, can you break down the ways and means? What does it involve?
Yeah, so the ways and means is the Central Bank of Nigeria is a lender of last resort to the federal government. So they basically printed money and gave it to the government, I think, to pay salaries, because the ways and means, as I understand it, is to the tune of about 22 or 23 trillion naira, which is higher than our entire budget for 2023. We don't have a breakdown from government. We just have a full amount. So, and again, the borrowing really started in 2016 or 2017 when Nigeria fell into her first recession, which was, I think it was 2016. So it was around 2016-17 that the borrowing started. But the problem is that we have not seen where that money went. So what is being thought or what is being theorized is that money all went towards just paying salaries and keeping the government going. So it's a lump sum of about 20-something trillion, but they borrowed it in bits and pieces over the course of the last 8 years that has caused the money to rise to this amount. So how they pay it off now is an issue. They are talking about turning it into a bond, an IOU, where investors will buy the loan and Nigeria now pay interest on it. They said 9%, but it's not Nigeria that's going to determine that interest rate. It's the markets that will determine it. So it's basically an amount of money that has been borrowed in every year since we fell into our first recession under Buhari in 2016.
Okay, I've got time to just take one message, and this one is from Gilbert Musa. He says, on Nigeria not currently maximizing high oil prices in the international market as at 2022, recall there was an independent report on oil theft in 2013. Oil theft in Nigeria brings to the fore once again the need for strong institutions in Nigeria and credible persons to work with it. Fully agree with that. Thanks for all your messages. And that's usual. It for Business Express. Thank you so much, Rotus. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Zibby. See you tomorrow.
And do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
To you by EnterSwitch. Transaction Solutions.